निज़ामे खुदा है निज़ामे खिलाफत,
निज़ामे खुदा है निज़ामे खिलाफत,
के हब्लुल मती है क़यामे खिलाफत,
के हब्लुल मती है क़यामे खिलाफत।
निज़ामे खुदा है निज़ामे खिलाफत, के हब्लुल मती है क़यामे खिलाफत, के हब्लुल मती है क़यामे खिलाफत, के हब्लुल मती है क़यामे खिलाफत, क़यामे खिलाफत।
In the year 1965, the community of the Promised Messiah alayhi salam was greatly saddened by the news of the demise of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II radiyallahu anhu. His Khilafat had lasted for 52 years, and in that time span he had led the community to new heights with the divine help of God Almighty. The community was well established and its structure was now well defined. Upon his demise, the community once again communed, and the community was blessed with its new head, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed. His appointment as the Khalifa fulfilled the prophecy of Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmed radiyallahu anhu. He had said, Allah has given me the glad tidings that I will be blessed with a son who will be a Nasiruddin, helper of faith. He will be committed to serving Islam. So accordingly, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed set out upon the task given to him by God of serving the faith. He united the community and made tremendous efforts to spread and defend the true message of Islam. During his Khilafat, he travelled to the Ahmadis around the world to rejuvenate them and to allow them to gain from the blessings of Khilafat. From 1967 to 1980, Hazur visited Ahmadis across the world. Many signs of God's acceptance and blessings were witnessed throughout the tours. Hazur made 7 overseas tours and visited Ahmadis of Europe, Africa and America. On the 4th of April 1970, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed embarked on a 9-week tour of West Africa.
Hazrat Khalifatul Masih III Rahimullah Ta'ala was the first Khalifa of the Promised Messiah alayhi salam to tread on African soil. This was the time when most African nations had recently shaken off the yoke of colonial rule. His visit not only rejuvenated Ahmadis in these countries, it also helped Hazur to understand the needs and the problems of people in these countries. The visit proved to be a highly successful one and high profile one, as he met with a number of heads of states and cabinet ministers.
It was the experiences of his 9-week tour and divine guidance that Hazur decided to establish the Nusrat Jahan scheme.
On his return from West Africa in London on 24th May 1970, he announced the initiation of Nusrat Jahan scheme, which was in fact a divine scheme under divine direction. Hazur invited Ahmadis to raise a sum of 100,000 pounds in 3 years to establish schools and hospitals throughout West Africa. This was done by the grace of Allah, and till this day thousands of people have been served with education and with health. Till this day, hundreds of Ahmadi volunteers are serving the cause of humanity under this scheme. Hazur's second visit was in 1980, and he visited two West African countries, and by the grace of Allah, he saw the blessed fruit of his scheme. Alhamdulillah.
Upon his tour of London in 1978, a conference on the deliverance of Jesus from the cross was held. Many dignitaries and scholars spoke at the conference. Hazur also delivered a historic lecture at the event, which was very well received by the public.
During Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salas III, Rahimullah alayhi, his European tour in 1980, the 700 years wait for a mosque in Spain finally came to an end. After the Muslims were ousted from Spain, Spain finally witnessed the first mosque, the Basharat Mosque, and this is a very important moment in the history of Spain because it marks the beginning of the new era of Islam in Spain. It was also during this tour that Sayyidina Hazur announced the motto of the Jamaat, love for all and hatred for none.
Hazur also blessed the Ahmadis of the USA and Canada. This was the first time that a successor of the promised Messiah had visited these countries. He had a keen interest in the education of the youth. Many young Ahmadis who were keen on intellectual pursuits received annual scholarships. He also established the Fazl-e-Umar Foundation in memory of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II, radiyallahu anhu, to promote activities which had been of special interest to the second Khalifa, radiyallahu anhu. Various projects were initiated to continue the many works of Hazrat Muslim Maud, radiyallahu anhu, such as the construction of the Khilafat Library and the publication of the biography, books, sermons, and various other scholarly works of Hazrat Muslim Maud, radiyallahu anhu, which are a treasure house of knowledge.
During the Khilafat of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis, as the centenary of the Jamaat was approaching, Huzur Aqdas launched the scheme for the centenary, and on the 28th of March 1973, Huzur announced that this centenary Jubilee scheme was to be launched to celebrate the 100 years of Ahmadiyyat. And Huzur asked the community to contribute generously. He requested the community to raise 25 million rupees. And indeed, by the grace of Allah, the community gave generously, manyfold, and some far greater than was required was raised as a result. As a result of this appeal, which was to help people in the poorer countries, a lot of money was raised, and the people in Pakistan, the opponents of the Jamaat became agitated, and as a result they created a lot of problems for members of the community, and there was a lot of looting and burning of homes and general destruction of Ahmadiyya properties. And as a result, a large number of Ahmadis in fact had to seek sanctuary in Rabwa, where Hazrat Khalifatul Masih then was able to comfort those people who were arriving in Rabwa and was able to allay some of their fears of the difficult period that they had gone through.
This patience agitated the opposition even further. The situation culminated in the National Assembly of Pakistan considering legislative action against the Jamaat. In September 1974, Hazur was requested to present the view of the Ahmadiyya community at this assembly. Hazur attended the assembly with a delegation and presented the arguments in an excellent manner, showing the claims of those who ought to declare Ahmadis as non-Muslims to be ridiculous and baseless. But the assembly only worked according to the motives of the mullahs, who had a pre-orchestrated scheme and outcome. And accordingly, the state passed the law labeling all Ahmadis as non-Muslims.
सुनो ये फैसला इस मुक़्तदिर अदालत का कि तुम जो शहर में खुशबू लगाए फिरते हो, शबे सियाह के दस्तूर से बगावत है। ये तुम चराग जो हर सू जलाए फिरते हो, ये मशवरा है तुम्हें।
At such dire times, Hazur again instructed all the Ahmadis to show patience and to turn to Allah with prayers. Although the community faced extreme challenges, but the resilience and patience of Hazur and God-given strength and capabilities continued to push the community moving forward. Not a step was taken back. The Jamaat continued to succeed and spread throughout the world. His Khilafat lasted 17 years, and on the 9th of June 1982, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih III passed away in Islamabad at the age of 73.
मगर हिज्र का न गिला करे, मेरे दर्द की जो दवा करे.
Upon the demise of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih III, radiyallahu anhu, Allah appointed Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmed as the fourth successor to the promised Messiah alayhi salam.
मैं आज ताहिर के हाथ पर बैठ करके सिलसिला अहमदिया में दाखिल होता हूँ.
The past 90 years have been witness to the fact that Khilafat has always been guided by God Almighty, and through this guidance, the Khulafa have achieved the seemingly impossible. The same is the case for the fourth Khalifa of the promised Messiah, alayhi salam. Being appointed by Allah, he was blessed with foresight. He could predict the needs and requirements of the community well in advance. Another great achievement in this period of Khilafat was the initiation of MTA, Muslim Television Ahmadiyya. The first broadcasts started in 1992, and on the 1st of April 1996, MTA International became the first Muslim TV channel broadcasting 24/7. This shortened the distances of Ahmadis from their Khalifa, and Ahmadis from around the world could now witness their Khalifa live from their homes. The benefits of Khilafat are not confined only for the followers of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. Rather, it is for the betterment of all people. This was graciously expressed of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV. Wherever he went, he was loved, and he felt it his responsibility to fulfill the needs of the poor and helpless. It was due to these characteristics that he initiated humanity first, a charity organization to help the needy all around the world. He also established Maryam Shadi Fund in memory of his late mother. This scheme provided poor girls to be wedded in a suitable manner. He was very learned in the field of homeopathy, and he taught homeopathy to the members of the community through initiating a series of homeopathy classes on MTA, and he provided free homeopathy treatment in most of the missions established by the community. All these schemes for the welfare of mankind are still in progress and are fulfilling the needs of mankind every day. Foreseeing the increasing needs of the community, on 19th of October 1999, Hazur laid the foundation stone of the Beit al-Fatuh Mosque, which on being completed became the largest mosque in Western Europe, and today it is serving as a great source of spreading the message of Islam, not only to the locals, but to international audiences. As is the way of every divine community, that they have to repeatedly face hardships and trials, there were many hardships and trials faced by the community during the Khilafat of Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmed. As soon as Hazur became Khalifa, General Zia-ul-Haq, the President of Pakistan, increased his efforts against the community.
On the 26th of April 1984, General Zia-ul-Haq issued the anti-Ahmadi ordinance, which actually prohibited the Ahmadis from calling themselves Muslims, or indeed even undertaking any of the practices that the Muslims would normally take. And even to say Assalamu alaikum as a result of the ordinance meant that Ahmadis were liable for 3 years of imprisonment. And this was a very difficult stage for Ahmadi Muslims in Pakistan. And as a result, it also meant that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih could not actually speak to his community as a result of this ordinance. Therefore, on the 29th of April, 1984, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah decided that it was important for the progress of the Jamaat that he should leave Pakistan. Although he had great love for the country, but he felt that by staying in Pakistan, he would not be able to preach to either his own Jamaat or to the world at large. And therefore, Hazur Akhtas arrived in London on the 30th of April, and this started a new chapter of Khilafat in the United Kingdom. And of course, the rest is history, because we saw such great advancement of the Jamaat as a result of the migration.
Even though the pain of leaving one's country and beloved followers was within the heart of Hazur, yet he understood that the migration to London will open new doors for the success of the community. Hazur established London as the new headquarters, where he could peacefully lead the community to new heights. But back home in Pakistan, Zia unleashed his rage upon the followers of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. The persecution increased to unimaginable levels. Then finally, on June the 10th, 1988, Hazur challenged Zia and his followers to a mubahla. He warned them of the consequences of their actions and instructed them to stop the persecution. Zia did not heed the warnings, but little did he know that the decree of God had passed. Just 2 months after the Mubahla challenge, the President Zia al-Haq died mysteriously in an air crash and met his unfortunate fate.
उनको दे उनके शर का सिला माल का जो शरारत के उठने लगे उनके शर से हमें खुद बचा माल का.
During his 21 years of Khilafat, Hazur visited many countries and many Ahmadis all around the world. He traveled to various countries of Europe. During his stay in Spain, he inaugurated the first mosque in Spain, whose foundations were laid by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih III, radiallahu anhu. One of his most passionate visits was his return to Qadian. In December 1991, he became the first Khalifa to visit Qadian after the partition of India and Pakistan. He attended the annual conference and blessed the Ahmadis with his presence.
वैसा वो घर भी सुंदर था जैसे सुंदर थी वो बस्ती वैसा वो घर भी सुंदर था.
During Hazur's Khilafat, the continent of South America was blessed with Khilafat for the first time in history. And in June 2000, he became the first successor of the promised Messiah alayhi salam to travel to the Far East and visited countries such as Japan, Fiji, Indonesia, Singapore, and Australia. Under Hazur's guidance, the community showed great patience and resilience in the face of much hardship and achieved many great milestones. Hazur's scholarly question and answer sessions with both Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis continued to serve as a source of great learning, and his translation of the Holy Quran and his scholarly works are a significant benefit to young and old. After 21 years of Khilafat, Hazur passed away on the 19th of April 2003 at his residence in the Fazl Mosque.
मगर हिज्र का न गिला करे मेरे दर्द की जो
3 days after the demise of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, the current head of the community, was commissioned by God as the fifth successor of the promised Messiah alayhi salam.
अशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाहु वहदहु ला शरीका लहु.
His appointment marks a new era of advancements for the community, and the Jamaat is witnessing endless bounties of God Almighty descending to support the hands of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, may Allah be his helper. The past decade has been a very fragile decade for the world. The financial and economic crisis and rising tensions between nations have been driving the world ever closer towards another world war. Seeing this and realizing the needs of the world, Hazur has been endeavoring to save mankind from destruction.
In 2004, Hazur instituted the National Peace Symposiums. These are not any ordinary event. Indeed, they're very different from any other event that you would find elsewhere in the world. Let me explain why. Islam is a religion which is the manifestation of all of the messages that were given to previous prophets, all the way through from Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, right through to Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. At its essence, it means peace. Indeed, the dominant theme that runs through every aspect of Islam is peace. The Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat represents the revival, the remanifestation of Islam through the promised Messiah alayhi salam, and Hazur is the Khalifa, which is the successor of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. So these peace symposiums aren't an event that should be confused with anything that is secular or worldly. They're far from it. What they do is they bring together humanity under the banner of peace and justice, regardless of creed, regardless of colour, regardless of origin. And now the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat has these national peace symposiums everywhere in the world.
From among many such places where Hazur has delivered crucial guidance for world leaders, there has been his address at the House of Commons of the United Kingdom, where he addressed the gathering on Islamic perspective on the global crisis. Similarly, he has also addressed the European Parliament in Brussels, where he spoke on responding to the challenge of extremism. Hazur's message has been well received. He has spoken at the German military headquarters in Koblenz. He also spoke at the Parliament in New Zealand and also in the company of the Prime Minister of Canada.
On the 27th of June 2012, Hazur was invited to speak on Capitol Hill. No other Muslim leader anywhere in the world has been invited to speak on an occasion or at a venue like that. And indeed, that is not the only place that Hazur has spoken. He's been invited within Europe, within the Far East, in North America, in Australasia, to government institutions and academic institutions and military institutions to speak about global peace and justice. Hazur spoke on Capitol Hill about just relations between nations. And he spoke to an audience of representatives from the House of Representatives in the US, senators from across the political divide, academics, religious leaders, White House officials, everybody who put aside all of their political, religious, social differences to come together and listen to a Muslim leader talk about how justice and peace can be established. He wasn't just invited to speak, he was also invited to the House of Representatives, where a resolution was passed honouring his pursuit of peace and justice globally.
The speeches and receptions of Hazur throughout the world have drawn much media attention in both the national and international press, and the message of Islam Ahmadiyya in the voice of the Khalifa of the promised Messiah alayhi salam has reached millions of people.
Yes, in 2012, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, may Allah be his helper, sent a series of letters to world leaders, including President Obama in America, the Canadian Prime Minister, Germany, UK's leaders, and also not just in the West, but also in the East, China's leader, and then the Muslim world, Saudi Arabia's king, and also the Iranian president and Ayatollah supreme leader. And during these letters, Hazur wrote about the need for world peace and the establishment of world peace as the critical need of the time. And he spoke of the perils that the world faced. Hazur said that we were on a brink of disaster, that the world was on a brink of disaster, that there was a risk of further outbreaks of war, and God forbid even a nuclear war. And the Hazur spoke to them very clearly and established the great difficulties and the great potential catastrophes that if such a war took place. And then Hazur used, for the Muslim leaders, he quoted the Quran and said, this is how you should be acting, this is how you should be leading the world. For the Western leaders, he spoke to them using their own scriptures, and same with the Israeli leader. And he guided them towards peace and justice. And throughout, Hazur said that the reason I am sending these letters is because it's my duty as the Khalifatul al-Masih, as the Khalifa of the promised Messiah of this era, to convey this message to you. After this, it's up to you whether you take heed or not. And if we look, it's been around 2 years since these letters were sent. But unfortunately, it seems that in the majority of cases, they haven't taken it as seriously as they should have. And so over the past 2 years as well, the situation of the world is becoming progressively worse and worse. And so we see even today, there's conflicts building up everywhere. Just currently, there's a horrific conflict in Gaza where Israel is conducting a very disproportionate attack. And this is all because of a lack of justice. And it's not just Gaza, there's other places in the world. But the point that Hazur made is that if you want peace in the world, then we need to establish justice along the lines of the ways that the Quran has taught, the ways that the Holy Prophet ﷺ established. And so Hazur has fulfilled his duty, and now we can only pray that people take heed.
Hazur has personally visited countries across the globe. In the past decade, Hazur has visited the Ahmadis of more than 50 countries.
Hazur's visits to various countries has had a substantial impact in introducing the message of Ahmadiyya, the true Islam, to literally millions of non-Ahmadis all over the world. He has met with world leaders, he has met with dignitaries, he has met with scholars, he has met with members of the press and media. But it's not simply just an external impact. Internally, Hazur's visits have galvanized millions of Ahmadis in local communities all over the world. And these local communities are able to achieve milestones in a matter of weeks that would otherwise have taken years, even decades to achieve. Take, for example, the building of mosques. Through Hazur's visits, literally hundreds of mosques are built every year all over the world. And we know that Ahmadiyya, the true Islam, is being firmly established.
In the past decade, when many new mosques have been built, under Hazur's guidance, many new jamiyas of the community have also been initiated in countries including Canada, UK, Bangladesh, Ghana, and Germany. The jamiyas of Pakistan and Qadian have gone through dramatic changes, providing better facilities and more space. The new, larger complex of Jamia Rabwa has now enabled more than 200 students to be admitted every year. Many other new buildings have been built to cater for the rising needs of the community. The new press in Qadian has been built, which holds state-of-the-art equipment and is producing a large number of books for the propagation of Islam. Following the achievements of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV radiyallahu anhu, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, has led the MTA channel to new heights, and it is now producing excellent quality screening and broadcast. Hazur takes personal interest and himself initiates many programs. Under Hazur's supervision, MTA has now launched an additional 2 channels. MTA2 was launched in 2004 and directs special programs in European languages such as English and German, while MTA al-Arabiya was launched in 2007 and broadcasts to the Arab-speaking communities in the Middle East, North Africa, and North America. These channels have also been made available online. Under the guidance of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, may Allah be his helper, the past decade has also seen a strong push for humanitarian works. In some of the poorest parts of Africa and Asia, Ahmadiyya engineers, architects, and medical associations have worked persistently to install wells for drinking water, solar panels for electricity, and hospitals and medical camps for free medical care. A state-of-the-art Tahir Heart Institute, where more than 300 patients are being treated every day, has been built in Rabwa for providing cheap and often free treatment to Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis alike. And developments in the Fazl-e Umar Hospital, Rabwa, and Noor Hospital, Qadian, and other hospitals in Africa and Asia are providing great help to all in need. Hazur's efforts are tremendous in encouraging the young members of the community to excel in their education. He takes keen interest in the future generation of the community, and through classes and personal meetings, he personally guides many in making the right choices. Under Hazur's leadership, the community has provided many students of Asia and Africa with scholarships and funding so that the members of the community excel in the field of education. Thousands of pounds are being spent for such students in need. Many students are graduating every year that are part of the Waqf-e-Noor scheme. They are receiving personal guidelines, instructions and support by Hazur about their career choices with regards to how they can truly fulfill their pledge of life devotion. Hundreds of Waqifin-e-Noor have therefore started fulfilling their pledge by offering their services in different walks of life with a true spirit of serving the faith of Islam, Ahmadiyyat. In recent years, the persecution of the members of the community in Pakistan and other countries has reached such levels that it is almost impossible for those living in Western countries to imagine. Ahmadis are being persecuted and martyred on a regular basis. The attack in Lahore on 2 Ahmadi mosques at Friday prayers on the 28th of May 2010 was a devastating event in the history of the community. More than 85 members of the community were martyred on a single day. At such a fragile time, under Hazur's guidance, the community showed extreme resilience and bore the pain with patience. And as has been the case with every divine community, the community showed no harsh reply and continued to seek help from Allah. In the face of such hardships, Hazur has continued to lead the community, marching ever forward even in difficult times. Under the supervision of the Khulafa of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, the community has been guided towards continuous success. The blessings associated with Khilafat, the divinely guided wisdom of the Khulafa, and the unity of the community under Khilafat has led the humble community initiated at the hands of the Promised Messiah ﷺ to ever increasing heights. Such achievements have been granted to the community that are unimaginable considering the resources. Today, the Ahmadiyya community is continuing to prosper under the divine guidance of his Khalifa, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad. May Allah continue to strengthen him. Ameen.
जारी रहेगा खिलाफत का फैज़ान जारी।